Similar to how we did last Tuesday, today we're going to check out 2 Game Boy Color reviews in one episode. Last week we had 2 variants of Solitaire, one card-based and one tile-based, released on the same day. Here we have 2 puzzle platformers, originally released on the DMG Game Boy towards the end of its life, both by the same developer-publisher combination, given Game Boy Color ports and released on the same day. You'd have to be a fairly tragic human being to care about something like that, but then I never claimed to be anything else, now did I? A follow-up, rather than a follow-through, to the 1984 Parker Brothers game Montezuma's Revenge for Atari and others. You need to guide explorer Monty around this vast Aztec tomb that features something like 150 rooms. There's an element of exploration here. You'll often have to backtrack to locked doors when you've found keys. Thankfully, there's a Metroidvania-style map to help you navigate. There are moving and crumbling platforms, ropes and ladders you can climb, and poles you can only slide down. One-hit death enemies everywhere, such as snakes, rolling skulls and spiders, and even later on, other treasure hunters. Fall too far and you die. It's rather an old-school nod to those 80s ZX Spectrum games which were deathly difficult at times, which was clearly the point. There are some pickups aside from the keys to help you along. A shield will render you invulnerable to enemies for a short time. Fires and high drops still kill you. A single-use knife will kill any enemy just by walking into it. You can use these up when you don't intend to, so try to still jump over things if you can. As for the keys, they come in different shapes: triangular, circle, domed, that sort of thing, and can only open locks that match. The old-school feel that this game gives off will clearly appeal to some and be anathema to others. The controls seem deliberately unforgiving. They're not bad, per se, but if you're expecting Super Mario levels of control over your character, think again. Your forward jump has a set length, no edging slightly forward here. Press left or right when you jump and you'll travel a very specific distance. You have no control over Monty in mid-air either. This can make the simplest of things like getting onto a rope really tricky. You can't always jump on a rope from the side either. Oftentimes you'll just fall straight through. The fact that both A and B are used for jump should tell you how much of it you'll be doing, but it's not all that much fun, to be honest. Death comes repeatedly and without warning, which would be alright except for the fact you have limited lives. If a password ever flashes up upon reaching a part of the tomb, write it down because you will need it. Montezuma's Return isn't the worst platformer on the system, nor is it massively unfair, but you'd have to think that a 1998 audience wouldn't have been particularly receptive to it. If you were brought up on the Commodore 64s and the Atari 8-bits of the world, you'd probably be right at home in what is clearly a love letter to a bygone era. Otherwise, get your swear jar ready. Much better known as a Game Boy Color game, understandable given its release date, this, as did Montezuma's Return, did actually receive a good old DMG issue as well, to show that even in 1998, the old brick still had some life in it. An irritating little aside before we take a look at the game, and one that may be relatable to collectors out there. I actually own multiple copies of the Game Boy Color version of this game, due to 2 separate online retro game retailers, won't name names, sending me a grand total of 4 GBC ones when all I wanted was the grey cartridge they were listed as. In the end, I drove over 100 miles to a video game store just to pick up a loose cartridge of this bloody thing. It strikes me that even after all that, I'd never actually played it before writing this. We hold weird grudges sometimes, don't we? The premise here is that you, Mr. Rez, finds out that his girlfriend is actually a mob boss's daughter. This Marlon the Godfather Mozzarella mouse-snaps her, and you've got to get her back. There are 5 worlds, each with 17 levels in total. The aim of each level is not to kill all the enemies. You can do if you like, but it's not necessary. You have to collect all the candy scattered about the place, then get to a door that'll unlock. It's a bit like Crazy Castle in premise, but with much more emphasis on platforming. The movement is nice and fluid, and you have some lovely control over Rez while he's in the air, something you'll need to master pretty quickly. His vertical leap isn't as high as it looks. You'll often have to jump sideways in a kind of staircase pattern. Note that you can't collect something on a platform higher than you even if your sprite touches it. You have to actually be on the platform. This does not apply to enemies, sadly, who will immediately kill you if but a single pixel makes contact. Figuring out the paths is key here, as the levels have quite a strict time limit. You can't really stop moving for a moment, unless you're waiting for the right timing to dodge a flying axe or something. Often you'll need to make several loops around a stage, collecting everything in a particular section before coming back round to do others. You can easily drop down, but climbing back up is what takes the time. All enemies can be killed with your infinite ammo machine gun, but they'll take a good number of shots to do so. Thankfully, when you hit them, they'll be stunned for a few frames, so their relentless charge towards you is halted, allowing you to pepper a good bunch of shots at them. Many enemies will drop this small egg when they die. Try to collect these if you can, because if left, a rat goon will drop out of them. These guys move much faster and can leap horizontally across gaps. They can still be killed, do so and another egg drops out, spawning a fox, which strangely aren't as dangerous. Kill this and the cycle's over, but you're better off just kicking the egg off the platform in the first place, or better yet, avoiding the enemy altogether. I really dig the graphics, especially with the colorization. A great use of subtle background details and bold foregrounds. It's nice and clear what everything is. Each of the 5 worlds takes a fair old time to get through, so it's a good job that each area's design is nice. You're going to be seeing them a lot. The same can't really be said for the music, which is just a collection of some blues songs that you'll almost certainly have heard before, changed just enough so as to avoid any royalty payments. Each world has their own theme, and they're all well put together, but hearing the same 30 seconds of 8-bar blues for half an hour straight could drive one to insanity. Reservoir Rat might have that instant death hump to get over until you learn the controls, much like Montezuma's Return does. This one is much more forgiving, I think, and thus probably more enjoyable for a wider audience. The controls just feel better, more natural, and it makes for a better game. The Game Boy Color version of this was called Rats! Outside of Europe, and would come a mere half a year or so after the original DMG version, which was a European exclusive on the original Game Boy, with Tarantula Studios being a British company. As it happens, this company has a rather interesting history, starting in 1992 as a duo called Spidersoft, and focusing on porting Amiga games to Game Boy, Speedball 2, Pinball Dreams, Chuck Rock, and so on. They worked alongside publishing house 21st Century Entertainment, and in 1995 became a subsidiary of them when they purchased the controlling stake. When 21st Century went bust in 1998, the studio was bought by Take-Two Interactive and renamed to Tarantula Studios, still working as a development team largely making ports. 2 of their most notable ones were the GBC ports of the first 2 Grand Theft Auto games, which brought them to the attention of Rockstar. By 2002, they had actually been restructured as Rockstar Lincoln, the city in England where they're based, and to this day serve as one of Rockstar's testing and localization hubs. Pretty neat for a pair of yellowbellies, I'd say.